The Ghost of the Outer Shoals, the story of the Carroll A. Deering. On a frigid January morning in 1921, the schooner Carroll A. Deering appeared as a silhouette on the horizon off the coast of North Carolina. At first glance, it seemed to be another homeward-bound vessel completing the final leg of its journey from the Caribbean island of Barbados. But something seemed wrong as the lightship overseer stationed at Cape Lookout peered closer. Instead of working the rigging or managing the deck, the crew meandered aimlessly, their movements listless, their purpose unclear. When hailed, one sailor shouted back that the ship had lost its anchors. It was a strange admission, but not unheard of. The lightship's overseer thought little of it at the time. 2 days later, the Deering reappeared, this time spotted by the SS Lake Elon. Its captain jotted a terse, unnerving note in his logbook. The schooner followed a peculiar course. The crew seemed agitated, and then, just as it had appeared, the schooner vanished once again, swallowed by the horizon. When the U.S. Coast Guard finally located the vessel on January 31st, the Carroll A. Deering was not sailing, but stranded, its hull wedged into the shifting sands of the outer shoals. The treacherous waters of North Carolina's Outer Banks, known as the Graveyard of the Atlantic, had claimed yet another victim, or so it seemed. But the wreckage told an eerie story. Weather conditions prevented an immediate investigation, so the ship's ghostly outline lingered offshore, waiting. When the storm subsided and the Coast Guard finally reached the wreckage, they found it deserted. Not a single crew member remained. The ship's lifeboats were gone, their davits hanging empty over the gunwales. Inside the ship, the crew's personal belongings were conspicuously absent. Papers, logbooks, even the captain's navigation tools, everything was missing. Yet amid the chaos of the abandoned vessel lay a peculiar sight. In the galley, a meal had been prepared and carefully laid out. Bowls and plates sat untouched, the food still fresh. The discovery confounded investigators. At first glance, the evidence hinted at a hasty evacuation. The missing lifeboats suggested that the crew had fled, though what could have prompted their sudden departure was unclear. The fact that no distress signal had been raised only deepened the mystery. The Coast Guard and local authorities scoured the waters and nearby islands for days. They questioned other ships that had passed through the area, hoping for a clue, but found nothing. Rumors swirled as word of the strange disappearance spread. Some whispered of pirates, a relic of an older age haunting the Atlantic. Others speculated about a mutiny, a revolt that had turned deadly. The theories only grew wilder. A few pointed to the Bolshevik Revolution and suggested that rogue Soviet agents, lurking in the shadows of post-World War I paranoia, had seized the ship. Still others linked the schooner's fate to the Bermuda Triangle, its haunting reputation bolstered by the Carroll A. Deering's inexplicable circumstances. The climax of the mystery came not in a revelation, but in the deepening of the riddle. Despite thorough investigations, no definitive evidence ever emerged to explain what had happened aboard the ship. The scene investigators encountered, a ship intact but eerily abandoned, only seemed to amplify the strangeness. Inquiries into the vessel's crew turned up little. The captain, W.B. Wormel, was a seasoned mariner with no known enemies. His crew, a mix of seasoned sailors and green recruits, offered no obvious source of tension. Yet something had driven them from the ship, something so urgent they left behind a prepared meal and vanished into the sea. Over the following months, salvage crews stripped the wreck of anything of value. The ship's hull, battered and weakened by the surf, was eventually destroyed with dynamite to prevent it from becoming a hazard to navigation. The Carroll A. Deering was erased from the shoals, but its story lingered. Despite years of speculation, no trace of the crew was ever found. The theories, piracy, mutiny, espionage, and supernatural intervention, remained just that: theories. Historians and nautical experts occasionally revisited the case, but the truth stayed stubbornly out of reach. A century later, the Carroll A. Deering continues to haunt the imagination. It stands as one of the great maritime mysteries, a story with no ending, A ship forever adrift in the fog of suspicions, its answers, it seems, forever lost to the tides. The flaming ghost ship, the Young Teazer. The evening sky over Mahone Bay in Nova Scotia darkened with a simmering tension, as if the waters themselves were whispering of the terror that was about to unfold. It was June 27, 1813, and onlookers aboard a schooner commanded by Sir John Sherbrooke held their breath as they prepared to seize one of the Atlantic's most elusive and infamous prizes, the pirate ship Young Teazer. But what happened next would not only defy expectation, it would etch an indelible mark into the folklore of Nova Scotia. Mahone Bay, cradled by jagged cliffs and dotted with scattered islands, seemed deceptively calm that day. The waters were still, save for the faint rustling of waves against Sherbrooke's ship, as if nature itself were bracing for calamity. The Young Teazer, notorious for its speed and daring, lay trapped within the bay's narrow confines. Its dark silhouette, etched against the horizon, held a grim presence, a predator turned prey. On board Sherbrooke's vessel, officers muttered in low voices, exchanging knowing glances. To corner the Teazer, a ship that had marauded the Atlantic coastline with impunity, was a victory in itself. But this wasn't just about strategy or maritime prowess, it was justice. The Teazer's raids had left Nova Scotian communities in tatters, and Sherbrooke intended to end its reign of terror. The pirates aboard the Young Teazer, however, were not ordinary men. Hardened by years of plunder, they were infamous for their cunning. Many of them had lived with the knowledge that their lives could end at sea, by cannon or rope. Cornered but defiant, they prepared for what seemed inevitable. It was then that witnesses from Sherbrooke's schooner saw a figure darting below deck aboard the Teazer. The ship's first officer, known among his crew as a man of volatile temperament, was seen carrying a flickering lantern. Moments later, the night exploded. A thunderous roar split the air, and the Young Teazer erupted into a blinding inferno. The schooner rocked violently from the force of the blast, debris raining down into the bay. Flames danced across the water as the Teazer disintegrated, taking its crew with it. On Sherbrooke's vessel, stunned silence gave way to murmurs of disbelief. The pirates had chosen annihilation over surrender, their fates sealed by their own hand. But the story of the Young Teazer didn't end in fire and smoke. In the days and years that followed, the explosion became the subject of eerie speculation. Locals who had witnessed the blast began to whisper about strange occurrences in Mahone Bay. Each June 27th, the anniversary of the Teazer's destruction, fishermen and sailors spoke of a phantom light appearing over the water. Known as the Teazer light, this spectral glow was described as a flickering orange orb hovering just above the bay's surface. It seemed to pulse as if echoing the inferno that had consumed the pirate ship. Some claimed to hear the tortured cries of the Teazer's crew, carried on the misty winds of the bay. Year after year, the Teazer light returned, drawing curious onlookers and superstitious fishermen. Some dismissed it as a trick of the atmosphere or a mirage, but others swore by its supernatural origins. Stories of the light spread far beyond Nova Scotia, solidifying the Young Teazer as both a maritime tragedy and a ghostly legend. For the locals, the light wasn't just an eerie phenomenon, it was a warning. Ships passing through Mahone Bay on June 27th often altered their courses, unwilling to tempt fate. To this day, the Teazer light remains one of Nova Scotia's most enduring mysteries. Whether it is the lingering spirit of defiance from the pirates, or merely the imagination of those who stand watch over the bay, its presence cannot be denied. The frozen Odyssey of the Octavius. In the biting winter of 1775, a whaling vessel called the Herald sliced through the ice-laden waters off Greenland's coast, its crew scanning the horizon for prey. Instead, they stumbled upon a ghostly vision, a three-masted vessel, battered by time and frost, drifting aimlessly among the floes. The name etched on its prow struck immediate recognition: Octavius. It was a ship presumed lost to the icy grasp of the Arctic 14 years earlier. What they discovered on board would cement the Octavius in maritime lore, a chilling testament to human ambition and nature's merciless grip. The Arctic Passage in 1761 was an uncharted dream, its icy expanse a forbidding frontier few dared to challenge. The Octavius, a British trading ship heavy with Chinese cargo, had departed northern China with its sights set on London. Its captain, whose name remains lost to history, had charted a daring course directly through the Arctic Passage, a route untested and perilous. His ambition was clear. He would carve a shortcut home, circumventing the usual routes through the treacherous waters of the Cape of Good Hope or around South America. But the Arctic had other plans with its shifting ice and unrelenting cold. The ship's route northward vanished into myth almost as quickly as it was plotted. By late 1761, whispers of the Octavius's fate began circulating in ports across the globe. Had it succumbed to the ice? Were the crew devoured by starvation or scurvy? The silence that followed left only speculation. The Octavius was almost forgotten until the fateful morning in 1775, when the Herald encountered its weather-beaten hull. Drawn by a mixture of curiosity and trepidation, the whalers rowed cautiously to the ship, the sound of oars breaking the otherwise still frozen air. As they boarded, the scene awaiting them below deck defied belief. The air inside was deathly still, suffused with an unnatural chill. The dim light filtering through frost-covered portholes revealed the Octavius's crew in eerie tableau. Frozen solid, they lay where death had taken them. Some slumped against walls, others still in their bunks, their features locked in expressions of mortal agony. The temperature had embalmed their final moments in time. In the captain's quarters, the grim centerpiece awaited, the master of the ship, seated upright at his desk. His skeletal hand clutched a quill, and the ink in the well was long frozen. Before him lay the ship's log, opened to a final entry dated early in 1762. The ink had blurred slightly in the moisture of his last breath. Still, the meaning was clear. The Octavius had been trapped in the ice as early as the previous winter, leaving the crew to die in its grip. The crew of the Herald froze in terror, their breath clouding in the air as they stood before this macabre scene. The lifeless captain seemed almost like he was glaring at them, his eyes glazed in frost. The whalers, seasoned mariners accustomed to danger, were unmoored by the sheer desolation on display. Whispers of ghosts flitted through their ranks, fear gnawing at their resolve. They hastily abandoned the ship, fleeing to their own vessel without further investigation. The supernatural seemed to hover in the frosty corridors of the Octavius, and no man among the Herald's crew dared tempt its wrath. The Herald sailed away from the frozen derelict, its crew shaken by what they had witnessed. The Octavius remained adrift, disappearing once again into the Arctic wilderness. It was never seen again, either claimed by the ice or sunk beneath the waves. News of the encounter spread rapidly, becoming a cautionary tale among sailors. Had the logbooks been recovered, they might have provided some answers to the questions that haunted everyone who heard the terrifying encounter. Unfortunately, the Octavius's final journey remained frozen in time, a riddle without an answer. The urban legend of the Ourang Medan. The sun hung low over the Straits of Malacca in June 1947 as the British merchant vessel Silver Star cut steadily through the busy shipping lane. The crew's routine was interrupted by an urgent, crackling distress signal. It was faint but unmistakable, a voice delivering a message that would chill even the most seasoned sailors.
All officers, including the captain, are dead. Their bodies are lying in the chart room and bridge. Possibly the whole crew is dead.
A pause followed, a silence that seemed to stretch beyond the horizon, before two final words shattered the stillness.
I die.
The Straits of Malacca were alive with activity, a vital artery for global trade. Ships passed each other in a maritime dance dictated by currents, commerce, and caution. The Silver Star, a sturdy and reliable British freighter, had seen its share of the world's oceans. Its crew, seasoned by years at sea, carried an air of unshakable composure. But the disembodied voice emanating from the radio defied explanation, its ominous message sinking deep into the marrow of those who heard it. The name of the ship in distress, Ourang Medan, was unfamiliar, yet its plight demanded immediate action. The Silver Star adjusted course, hastening toward the coordinates broadcast in the message. As the ship neared the source of the distress call, the Ourang Medan came into view, a ghostly silhouette against the horizon. The freighter appeared intact, its hull unmarred, yet an eerie stillness surrounded it. The Silver Star's captain ordered a boarding party to investigate. Armed with only their wits and tools of their trade, the men climbed aboard. What greeted them was a tableau of inexplicable horror. Bodies lay sprawled across the decks, their limbs contorted in unnatural angles. Faces were frozen in grotesque expressions of terror, eyes wide and mouths agape, as though they had glimpsed something unspeakable in their final moments. There were no visible wounds, no blood, no evidence of violence. The silence was profound, broken only by the creak of the ship's timbers and the murmur of the sea. The boarding party pressed on, searching for clues in the ship's interior. The chart room and bridge yielded no answers, only more lifeless forms locked in death's grip. The air grew heavy with unease as the men grappled with the incomprehensible scene before them. Questions buzzed in their minds, but no answers emerged. As the crew of the Silver Star scoured the vessel, a new threat made itself known: the faint but unmistakable scent of smoke. A thin wisp rose from below deck, quickly growing into an acrid warning. The men had no time to search for its source. They retreated hastily, abandoning the Ourang Medan for their own ship. Moments after they pushed away, the Dutch freighter erupted in a catastrophic explosion. The blast sent a shockwave across the water, and when the smoke and fire subsided, the Ourang Medan was gone, reduced to a sea of smoldering debris. Back aboard the Silver Star, the shaken crew pieced together what little they could from the brief and harrowing encounter. Speculation ran wild. Had the Ourang Medan been carrying dangerous cargo? Was it an accident or something more sinister? Theories emerged as quickly as the flames that consumed the ship, but each was met with more questions than answers. The destruction of the freighter obliterated any hope of a thorough investigation, leaving the sailors to grapple with what could have happened. In the decades since, the Ourang Medan has become an apparition of maritime lore, its story retold in hushed tones by sailors and conspiracy theorists alike. Some suggest it carried hazardous chemicals or experimental weapons left over from World War II, while others invoke the supernatural to explain the inexplicable. The Straits of Malacca, bustling as ever, offer no clues, their waters holding tightly to the secrets of that fateful day. The phantom steamboat of the Tombigbee. On a cold, windy night in March of 1858, the stillness of the Tombigbee River was shattered by a calamity that would leave a permanent scar on its history. It began with a spark, tiny, almost imperceptible, amidst the cargo of the Eliza Battle, a majestic steamship laden with over 1,200 bales of cotton. The following fire transformed a routine journey into one of the most harrowing maritime disasters the river had ever seen. The Tombigbee River traces the borderlands of Mississippi and Alabama, its waters a mirror to the dense forests and moss-draped trees that line its banks. That evening, a sharp wind cut through the night air, rippling the surface of the river and adding a chill to the late winter landscape. The Eliza Battle, a proud vessel with its towering smokestacks and ornately carved woodwork, glided steadily through the water. Aboard, passengers mingled under the glow of gas lamps. At the same time, crew members tended to the ship's boilers, unaware of the danger brewing within the cargo hold. The trouble began as the wind picked up strength, howling across the deck and pressing against the ship's flanks. Among the tightly packed bales of cotton, a spark ignited. A flicker so small it might have gone unnoticed in calmer conditions. But the gusting wind fed the spark into a flame, which leaped hungrily from one bale to the next. Within moments, the fire exploded into an inferno, consuming the Eliza battle with terrifying speed. Shouts of alarm rang out as flames licked the timbers and thick black smoke curled into the night sky. Panic spread like the fire itself. Passengers, some in their nightclothes, scrambled for lifeboats or leaped into the freezing water, their cries piercing the cacophony of crackling wood and roaring flames. The overwhelmed crew fought desperately to control the blaze, but their efforts were in vain. The fire had claimed the ship. By the time the flames began to die down, the river was littered with wreckage, charred cotton, and bodies. 33 souls were lost that night, some swallowed by the fire, others by the dark, icy waters of the Tombigbee. As the final embers sank beneath the surface, the river returned to its eerie calm, but the tragedy refused to be forgotten. For those who survived, the memory of that night was burned into their minds, a nightmare etched in fire and screams. Yet, as the years passed, a strange phenomenon began to take hold. Locals along the river started to report an unsettling sight, a ghostly steamer floating silently along the Tombigbee, its form wreathed in spectral flames. Some claimed to hear the anguished cries of those who perished that night, their voices carried by the wind like a mournful echo of the disaster. The stories grew and passed down through generations. Some dismissed them as superstition, a way for survivors and their descendants to process the horror of that night. But others believed the ghostly visions were real, an unexplainable residue of the lives lost and the tragedy that unfolded on those waters. Fishermen on moonlit nights have claimed to see the Eliza battle gliding past, its fiery outline casting a ghastly glow over the river. It looked alive, one account stated, but it wasn't. It was as if it was frozen in time. Whether these sightings are figments of imagination or something more remains a question no one can definitively answer. To this day, the Eliza battle remains a spectral presence, its ghostly passage a chilling reminder of the lives lost and the enduring power of memory. Whether real or imagined, its fiery apparition continues to haunt the Tombigbee as if the river itself refuses to forget. So, are these just tales from weary sailors? Or is something much more strange going on? Be sure to leave your thoughts in the comments section below. And if you made it this far, thanks for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks again, and I hope to see you next time.